Hi, I'm T.H. Cohen for Solar Cities, and this is Claudia Jamires Santos. I think I pronounced that correctly. Exactamente. I'm learning some Portuguese. And Portuguese, we are in Brazil, and this is Rio de Janeiro's first Solar Cities IBC biodigester. The model that we have been arguing is appropriate for favelas and congested urban situations. We have a similar situation, a similar digester in Favela de Paz in Sao Paulo that's been running for 3 years and is our flagship here in this part of the world. But this is the first one for Rio, and it's at Catalytic Community's home base, and Teresa Williamson's behind the camera over there. This is her home and base of operations. And then there's Lionel Hawks, who is an architect, who's part of Solar Cities New York, and then behind the camera Tito Calles, who with Leo Adler is Solar Cities Brazil. And we've completed this IBC tank digester. We're using 2-inch pipes because we couldn't find a hole saw large enough or a metal cylinder large enough to use a 4-inch uniseal with a 100 millimeter pipe, excuse me. So we are using 2 inches, but that's okay because Teresa has an InSinkerator food grinder in her sink. So we're going 2 inches here, and then we have the 4-inch to 2-inch reducer. This is the mouth of our sacred cow or our domestic dragon, where the food waste then is poured every day and it goes down to the bottom. Then we have this gas out here, which I can demonstrate is coming out the top. You want to get a top that has an O-ring for sealing. You're going to put grease in when you actually put it on, and it has a 2-inch threaded hole that makes it easy to put your gas pipe. We start with 1.5 inch pipe and then reduce to 1/2 inch up where the gas comes out. That way it can't get clogged easily. That's why you want to have that. And this has to be above the water line. The water line is here. This is going to be filled up with water to here. Then we have the fertilizer overspill pipe. This also goes down to the bottom of the tank through a 2-inch uniseal, but it has a hole in the middle facing this way so that the spent fuel, the liquid fertilizer, as its density changes, as it's digested, can rise to the density of water in the middle of the tank. Fats will always be up top, and they still have energy, so you want to keep them digesting. Also, gas is accumulating at the top, and you don't want that to escape. Down at the bottom, you have fats, and you have proteins and carbohydrates. They're heavier than water. They sink to the bottom, and they're being digested. So you want to pull the fertilizer out of the center of the tank, and that's why this pipe has a hole in the center, and this facing this way, so the fertilizer has to travel around after it's digested, gone across the tank, and that gives it the longest hydraulic retention time. Then the overspill here is a good 5 to 6 centimeters below this water line level here. So you measure it up, you want to be at least 25, maybe 30 centimeters above the tank, and down here we're coming at about 20-25 for the overspill. So every time you start filling this cup with water and food waste, an equivalent amount of fertilizer is spilling over. The open T here, which you're welcome to close up as long as you put a tiny pinhole, is for atmospheric pressure to keep a siphon from developing. Because if this is sealed, or you just used an elbow, then as the fertilizer spilled, it would suck all the fluid out of the tank. So you need to have at least a pinhole here. We tend to keep it open, so if you needed to, you could unclog it if it ever got clogged. But if you see that there's any problem, if you find any odor at all, and usually there's no odor, then you could just put something here also if you want to keep rainwater out. And then it spills out here passively into a bucket. Every time you feed it a few liters of water and food waste, you're going to get a few liters of fertilizer out, which you then take over to the garden. Wonderful nitrogen-rich, potassium, phosphorus-rich fertilizer. This tank right now is just a producer of biogas because it's filled with water all the time. We're right now using a small car inner tube for the first gas production, but this would only let you cook for about 5-7 minutes or so, make a couple cups of tea. The bigger your truck inner tube, the more gas you can store. And if you want more, you can then put, of course, bladders, any kind of gas bags up on the roof here. You could build a gas storage out of IBCs, the floating IBC that we've developed in Portugal, the 2-tank water pressure IBC that Fabio has in Favela de Paz. A lot of ways to store the gas, even, as Teresa points out, pool toys and water mattresses, anything that stores air. The tube here is going so that the gas, as it's produced, comes out and runs through this tea into this bag, into this inner tube, and with the tea out over the rafters here and into a stove. And let me show you the stove concept as it runs through. This is arguably the simplest stove in the world. The half-inch pipe has a quick disconnect here, which is made of a smaller pipe, a 3/8-inch pipe, so that you can disconnect it if you need to close the window. And then it goes into a valve, and the valve is great for regulating the gas height, which comes through this coffee can, or actually it's a chocolate can stove. So you've got this chocolate can, and what's going on in here is there are stones and a pipe, and the pipe goes to about the middle, and the stones act as a flame spreader, so you get even gas production. It actually stores a bit of gas in here, and then it's just epoxy to pipe onto that. And you just turn that over like this and put something on top that will enable you to put your teapot on so that there's enough of an air gap that air can get in, because there's no air introduced into the biogas line. It's low pressure. It doesn't need any kind of venturi. It's when the gas starts to emerge from these pinholes here that the air comes in the side. And as long as you leave a little gap for the air to come in, it burns great. And then you have an ability to cook and make tea. You can make these as beautiful as you want. You can make them out of big fruit cans. You can make them out of coffee cans, Nido powdered milk cans. Any metal can makes a wonderful stove. It really works often a lot better than trying to buy a stove and modify the stove. And it's very quick and cheap to set up, and you can valve it from here and then put something that you put the pot on. So this is a wonderful idea for people to cook everywhere. And that's about it. That's about all we can say for now. The tank has to be painted so that it's opaque to light. Want to make it black so it heats up in the sun. And then we have, of course, to fill it up with some inoculant and water. And we're using dog manure. Now, in the incinerator is the way that we're able to get the food into the 2-inch pipe. This one here is going into a bucket. And then the bucket is carried out to the digester. And so this is a great thing if you have it. If you don't, then you have to just get your food waste chopped up and leave it in the sun in a bucket of water for a while, or warm water, and leave it for a day or two until it gets nice and soft. And then you can pour it without clogging. So we do hope, as we say in Solar Cities, you will try this at home.